He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. And he's a big Trump hater. Openly, he's a Trump hater. And his wife, deranged, is even more of a Trump hater. Did the FBI do that? Because they also did something where they put documents all over the floors and they took pictures. Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Jack Smith. Jack Smith. Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. And he's a big Trump hater. Openly, he's a Trump hater. And his wife is even more of a Trump hater. Jack Smith. He's a Trump hater. His wife's a Trump hater. His family's a Trump hater. They all hate Trump. They hate him with a passion. They'll do anything they can to hurt Trump. He's deranged. He's a harasser and an abuser. Did the FBI do that? Because they also did something where they put documents all over the floors and they took pictures. Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Jack Smith. Jack Smith. Jack Smith. He's deranged. He's deranged. But he's a harasser and an abuser. Jack Smith. He's a Trump hater. Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Did the FBI do that? Because they also did something where they put documents all over the floors and they took pictures. And he's a big Trump hater. Openly, he's a Trump hater. And his wife is even more of a Trump hater. He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. Deranged Jack Smith. And he's a big Trump hater. Openly, he's a Trump hater. And his wife is even more of a Trump hater. Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Jack Smith. He's a Trump hater. His wife's a Trump hater. His family's a Trump hater. They all hate Trump. They hate him with a passion. They'll do anything they can to hurt Trump. But he's a harasser and an abuser.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the special edition. Welcome to the special edition of Jack Smith is Coming. Oh boy, and boy oh boy, are we going to get into this. You know, I don't know if these pictures are going to do justice out here on TikTok. So please bear with me. And for the record, ladies and gentlemen, we will only be talking about Jack Smith during this show. All right, so fair enough. Let's get this show started, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yes, Snuggles does need to buy me dinner, but I digress. So many of you know I've been saying at the tail end of most of my videos, I kept saying Jack Smith is coming, and I've always said this, and now we are getting some serious traction on Jack Smith and everything that he represents. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let the show begin. Now, one of the first things I want to point out to you, ladies and gentlemen, is this. I have a quote. I don't know if you can read it right there, but I'll read it to you. And this is from someone who has worked with Jack Smith. All right. He says, "You never see Jack dragging through the day. He's full on every day." that, ladies and gentlemen, you know what we must do. Let's get it going. Let's get this show going because I got to make sure we get through all of my talking points. So let's move on with the show and start here. Where do we start with Jack Smith? How about here? Let's start with the beginning. I know you can't read it, but I'll say it to you. Jack Smith, ladies and gentlemen, was born on June 5th, 1969. He grew up in Clay, New York, a suburb right outside of Syracuse. He played football and baseball and graduated high school in 1987. He obtained his bachelor's of arts summa cum laude from the state of New York and Oneida, and his JD from Harvard Law School in 1994. Let's give Jack Smith a round of applause. And if you don't know, ladies and gentlemen, Jack Smith is the one currently prosecuting the former president. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to our next part of the show. His real name is John Luman Smith. How many of you knew that, right? John Luman Smith. And as I said earlier, he is a Harvard graduate. And get this, he's not registered to any political party. He is married to Katie Shavingi, a documentary filmmaker, and the couple has a daughter and has been living in the Netherlands since 2018. Now, here's something interesting that some of you may already know, but I'm going to say it anyway. I want you to really understand who this man is. In 2000, he was struck by a truck while biking, badly fracturing his pelvis. And after the crash, he was always dealing with some sort of injury, he said. He actually goes on to say something like this. I went through several years of seeing many therapists with no real improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to understand, Jack Smith, he's a man that knows pain and understands it very well, okay? While in New York, here's an incredible story about Jack Smith. While in New York, he once spent a weekend sleeping in the hallway of an apartment building so that he could intercept a victim who was afraid to testify in a domestic violence case. The woman wound up taking the stand after what Jack Smith said was a long talk. I know this is hard for a lot of you Trump supporters to understand and process, but I'm doing this so that you have no misunderstanding about the caliber of individual Jack Smith is. Now let's move it on. Let's talk about the man behind Law and Order. When Smith is not busy competing in Ironman and swimming cycle run triathlon races, according to his former colleagues, he is a working dogged investigator who is open-minded and not afraid to pursue the truth. They described him as just as tenacious in seeking to have criminal charges dropped for the innocent as he is to win convictions of the guilty. This is Jack Smith. Quote, if the case is prosecutable, he will do it, says Mark Lesko, an attorney at the firm he used to work with Jack Smith at. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand Jack Smith is nobody to play with. Moving along. Let's talk about his prosecutorial career. In 1994, he was an assistant district attorney with the New York County District Attorney's Office. Wow. In 1999, he became an assistant U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of New York, where he worked for 9 years prosecuting issues such as gang murders of police officers as well as civil rights violations. From 2008 to 2010, Smith worked in the International Criminal Court where he oversaw war crimes, ladies and gentlemen. In 2010, he returned to the Justice Department where he worked as chief of the Public Integrity Section, overseeing public corruption and election-related investigations. In 2015, he served as the first U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Tennessee before becoming the acting United States Attorney. Let's give Jack Smith a round of applause. Oh, and on May 7th, ladies and gentlemen, he was named to a 4-year term as chief prosecutor for the Kosovo Special Chambers of The Hague, investigating war crimes committed in Kosovo. Ladies and gentlemen, what more could you ask for out of a prosecutor? And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I have some terrible news. On November 18th, 2022, Jack Smith was appointed to serve as special counsel to oversee 2 ongoing criminal investigations. The first investigation was into whether any person or entity unlawfully interfered with the transfer of power following the 2020 presidential election, or whether or not the electoral college vote held on or about January 6, 2021. The second was investigation involving those classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Let's give him a round of applause. Woo, Jack, listen, it's getting hot in here with Jack Smith. All this Jack Smith talk. Let's move it on, ladies and gentlemen. See, I got to make sure a lot of you know this. And then this is always going to be a point of reference. Good greetings, Brother Heaven. This is always going to be a point of reference. Let's talk about some of Jack Smith's notable cases. He was involved in the brutal attack of Abner Louima, a Haitian immigrant who was SA'd by police officers with a broomstick in 1997. Wow, Jack Smith, he's been doing this for that long. I remember this case. Also, Robert McDonnell, a Republican former governor of Virginia, and that was later overturned by the Supreme Court. I'm just being honest. He was also involved in the conviction of former Representative Rick Renzi, a Republican in Arizona, who Donald Trump, of course, pardoned during his final hours as president. I know. Let's do it. You just never know what Trump's going to do. I know. It's true. He was also involved with public corruption and conviction against former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, a Republican. But that case was also overturned by the Supreme Court. So Jack Smith has taken his share of losses. He also prosecuted former Democrat Vice President nominee John Edwards, but a jury acquitted him on one count and deadlocked on the others, and the Department of Justice declined to try him again. But he has had a number of successful cases against a number of state officials charged with defrauding taxpayers as well as service members who defrauded the military. Thank you, but I cannot join. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jack Smith. Give him a round. So let's start here. Let's start here with the big lie. I know Trump supporters aren't going to like it, but I got to help explain why Jack Smith is here. On November 3rd, 2020, Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris received a whopping 81 million votes, a new record never seen before. And on November 7th, were declared the winners over sitting President Donald Trump and Mike Pence. This is facts. The final votes of the total electoral college was 306 to President Biden versus 232 to Donald Trump and Mike Pence. As the ballots were still being counted 2 days after Election Day, Donald Trump, he falsely asserted that there was tremendous corruption and fraud going on, adding, "If you count the legal votes, I easily win," is what he said. "And if you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us." As a matter of fact, Trump went one step further. On January 2nd, 2021, President Donald Trump, in his most brazen act, in an effort to overturn his election defeat, in a recorded phone call, he told Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, quote,
I just want to find 11,780 votes,
wow,
which is one more than we have.
Right. And this, along with baseless allegations of fraud in Georgia and other states that were amplified by Trump, he said, quote, the election was stolen from you and me and from the country, fueled the violent Capitol siege on January 6, 2021. Shame on Donald Trump for doing that. I couldn't help but say that. So now we understand how the big lie plays into this. Now we're going to have to talk about, hello, Angela, nice to see you. Now we're going to have to talk about the next issue, the classified documents. Many of you have read the indictment, but if not, this sums it up pretty fairly, I would say. On January 20th, 2021, Donald Trump ceased to be president, and as he departed the White House, he illegally took scores of boxes with classified documents to be transported to his residence in Mar-a-Lago, where he, ladies and gentlemen, proclaimed he had a right to have access to these documents. On March 30th, yes, shame. Thank you, Yazzie. On March 30th, 2022, the FBI, they opened a criminal investigation into the unlawful retention of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. And as I said earlier, ladies and gentlemen, on November 18th, 2022, Merrick Garland appointed Jack Smith to handle the classified documents investigation and Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election in order to avoid having the appearance of a conflict of interest. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to move on to our next section. And this is why I tell the Trump supporters, you might really want to get those knee pads, because Jack Smith, he is the real deal. He's the real deal. So immediately, almost immediately after Jack Smith was appointed, he started to get a string of victories. And these aren't all of them, but here's some of them that I felt was of critical and urgent importance. On December 1st, 2022, a federal appeals court shut down the special master review of documents that the FBI seized from Mar-a-Lago. So Jack Smith immediately is winning. December 23rd, 2022, Donald Trump's attorney, Tim Parlatore, testified before Jack Smith's grand jury, where he described how Trump's lawyers scoured through his properties for those classified documents. Later on in 2022, as well as in early 2023, Donald Trump's legal team found more classified documents in a Florida storage unit, and they also turned over a laptop belonging to a Trump aide who had copied those documents onto a computer, not realizing they were classified. I know. And in spring of 2023, a string of key witnesses testified before the special counsel's grand jury in Washington, D.C., and this includes administration officials Robert O'Brien, Rick Grino, who handled national security and intelligence matter, Margot Martin, a communications aide who continued to work with Trump after he left the White House, Matthew Calamari Sr. and his son, longtime Trump employees who oversaw Trump's organization, his security at his Trump organization. And Jack Smith, ladies and gentlemen, he didn't stop there. Oh no. He went on to score more victories. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just give Jack Smith a round of applause. Moderators, please put the pictures of Jack Smith out there so they can see this is a real person. Thank you all so much. More victories for Jack Smith included in mid-March. In response to a new subpoena from the special counsel, Donald Trump's lawyers turned over more materials related to classified Pentagon documents that he discussed at a recorded meeting in 2021. What else? On March 25th, 2023, Evan Corcoran, the Trump lead attorney, testified before a grand jury in Washington, D.C. This occurred after a federal judge ordered him to answer prosecutors' questions, ruling that the attorney-client privilege did not shield his discussions with Trump because Trump may have been trying to commit a crime through his attorneys. Corcoran later recused himself after handling the Mar-a-Lago matter. Ladies and gentlemen, this just shows you, this is illustrating just how dangerous and how bad Jack Smith really is. On June 5th, ladies and gentlemen, now I skipped the part where Jack Smith also got the Vice President Mike Pence to testify. But this is just more evidence that this man means business. On June 5th, 2023, many of you are familiar with this. Donald Trump's lawyers met with senior Justice Department officials, including special counsel Jack Smith, to discuss the Mar-a-Lago investigation. The sit-down, ladies and gentlemen, lasted 90 minutes, and Trump's team raised concerns about the probe, which they have called unlawful and outrageous and an abuse of the system. It didn't stop Jack Smith, though. It didn't stop him. Because on June 7th, thank you so much for those gifts. On June 7th, ladies and gentlemen, news outlets reported that the Justice Department sent Donald Trump a target letter, formally notifying him that he was the target of an investigation into the potential mishandling of classified documents. So where do we go from here, ladies and gentlemen? Where do we go from here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there are some challenges. Oops, there's a little typo. Don't worry about it. There are some challenges. One, Donald Trump is one of his challenges. As many of you know, Donald Trump continues to verbally assault Jack Smith. Okay. Also, Donald Trump's cronies. These are also problems for Jack Smith as well. Other problems include members of Congress threatening to defund the FBI, and more specifically defund Jack Smith, as well as the Trump supporters. Order. I'm almost done. And without going into any more detail about that, many of you, I thought this would be interesting to pay attention to. There are some nicknames that Donald Trump has lobbied against Jack Smith, and here's a list of them. the harasser. He calls Jack Smith the harasser.
But he's a harasser and an abuser.
He calls him deranged.
He's deranged.
He calls him the abuser. He calls him Mad Dog Psycho, a Trump-hating thug, a weaponized monster, an unfair savage, a deranged lunatic, and a terrorist.
And he's a big Trump hater. Openly, he's a Trump hater. And his wife is even more of a Trump hater. Deranged Jack Smith.
You like Mad Dog Psycho? Well, ladies and gentlemen, despite all of these roadblocks and Donald Trump's name calling and insulting, Jack Smith never gave up on us. You know what he did, ladies and gentlemen? Despite all of this going on, Jack Smith said, you know what, sir? I could care less. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We have now arrived at the indictment phase. Listen, I told you he got a string of victories, okay? And one of the biggest victories he's got was the indictment. Moving on. An indictment, ladies and gentlemen, was unsealed, charging Donald Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. Jack Smith, when he made his public speech, he made it on Friday last week. He said, adherence to the rule of law is a bedrock principle to the Department of Justice. He said, we have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. It is very important for him to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in the court of law. And he later went on to thank the public servants of the FBI. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Smith didn't back down to Donald Trump at all. Let's give him a round of applause. Oh, this is so funny. Oh, so let's talk about the indictment. Indictment Day, which is on the 8th. Yes. Like I said, this was the grand jury that actually indicted Donald J. Trump on those 37 federal crimes, including illegally retaining national security documents and conspiring to obstruct justice. And while this is all happening, you got to be mindful in the backdrop on social media, Donald J. Trump is proclaiming that he is totally innocent, okay, and that all of this is a hoax. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to make sure I reminded all of you, this is not a hoax. This is the real deal. You want to know how real it is? Well, let's jump forward to today. Ladies and gentlemen, today, Donald J. Trump finally got to be in the same room as Jack Smith. I hear he was within 20 feet of Jack Smith today. And I heard he was slouched over. His back muscles were tense. His face was shrilled up. And he was, for the first time, in complete shock that Jack Smith was sitting right behind him, okay, during his arraignment. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Jack Smith, for the first time in American history, is seeking to put on criminal trial a person who was once elected to be the president of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, and this is just only one of the investigations Jack Smith was investigating the former president on. We still have the investigation about his conduct surrounding the events on January 6th. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's make sure we do all we can to help support Jack Smith. I'm gonna wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen, because we gotta stop right here. Because there's still more to come. But I want to leave, and I want to make sure when I leave this in your minds about Jack Smith. Jack Smith, for those of you who think that Donald Trump intimidates him, no, he doesn't. For those of you, yes, Poker Dad, I am After Dark. For those of you who think that the members of Congress can intimidate Jack Smith, they don't. For those of you who think that the Trump supporters, that they can intimidate Jack Smith, you can't. And I'm going to tell you why. And this is a quote I found while doing my, putting all of this together. This is a quote that I found that I think best describes him and his so-called matchup against the former president. Quote, Jack Smith has tried war criminals who have committed mass atrocities, So I don't think he is going to be daunted by name calling by Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes. Jack Smith is coming for now, okay? There is more to come, ladies and gentlemen. But I do hope you all appreciate the show about who Jack Smith is and what he stands for. He is, and someone that I showed this to, they said he's like the Captain America of lawyers out here in the United States. He is saving the United States by doing this, holding the former president accountable. Yes, and his conviction rate, from what I read, is 97%. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give Jack Smith a round of applause. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I must depart and get back to tending to the affairs of the kingdom. But I do thank you for tuning in and listening to Zeus After Hours. Take care, ladies and gentlemen, and have an amazing rest of your night. I'm out of here.
Did the FBI do that? Because they also did something where they put documents all over the floors and they turn Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. And he's a big Trump hater. Openly, he's a Trump hater. And his wife is even more of a Trump hater. Did the FBI do that? Because they also did something where they put documents all over the floors and they took pictures. He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's a Trump hater. His wife's a Trump hater. His family's a Trump hater. They all hate Trump. They hate him with a passion. They'll do anything they can to hurt Trump. But he's a harasser and an abuser. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's deranged. He's deranged. Jack Smith. Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Did the FBI do that? Because they also did something where they put documents all over the floors and they took pictures. Deranged Jack Smith. And he's a big Trump hater. Openly, he's a Trump hater. And his wife is even more of a Trump hater.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength. Smith. But he's a harasser and an abuser. Did the FBI do that? Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. Deranged Jack Smith. Jack Smith. He's deranged. Jack Smith. He's a Trump hater. His wife's a Trump hater. His family's a Trump hater. They all hate Trump. They hate him with a passion. They'll do anything they can to hurt Trump. But he's a harasser and an abuser. Donald Trump is indicted and they take one charge and they turn it into 36 charges. Did the FBI do that? Because they also did something where they put documents all over the floors and they took He's deranged. Jack Smith. Jack Smith. He's a Trump hater. His wife's a Trump hater. His family's a Trump hater. They all hate Trump.